All right, as you stroll in today from your winter weather somewhere around the United States, maybe there's snow in your forecast, maybe there's snow on the ground for you, but it's probably cold, judging by the temperatures across the US, which makes it a perfect time to start a zero sugar challenge, right? We're all happy. It's great. Well, still, it's still a great time to start it as well. But we have Michelle Norris back as well, a wonderful, wonderful expert for us. She's going to give us some tips on this today. But first of all, I want to
Mm.
welcome you all here. I have Carson from Addis Wealth Partners. I have Thomas as well from Freeze Financial Group. So I want to make sure I send it to you guys. How about yourself? What's going on, Carson?
Yeah, we're underneath an entire sheet of ice. Every single tree is under a sheet of ice. So we're struggling here in Nashville, but it's okay. What a perfect time to be inside and talk about sugar and why you should be limiting the added sugar. But no, it's good. Michelle, thankful to have you here. I think a super important topic, especially as I mean, at least for in my household, having a 7-year old and almost 5-year old, I feel like any
Mhm.
snack you go to choose from, I mean, added sugar. Like no matter what, there's added sugar in absolutely everything. Not that I'll let you get into science behind it and what's good, what's bad, but just there's sugars everything. I feel like our entire society runs on sugar. But
Mhm.
for those that
Yep.
are listening, there will be a Q&A as always with these. So please, if you see a question button at the bottom of your screen, please ask it, and we'll do our best to monitor those and make sure that we get your questions answered. Thomas?
Perfect. Yeah, thinking about you guys down there, Carson. We're the northernmost office here on this call, so it's been pretty consistently below 0 degrees for the last 2 weeks, but we haven't had the ice. So yeah, it looks bad down there. But excited for this, excited for today's topic. My dad was actually a dentist, so a common kind of
Mm.
tagline in our family was sip all day, get decay. But unbeknownst to me, sugar actually affects us in other ways besides just our oral health.
Mhm.
So excited for Michelle to to take us through this and yeah, to learn more about that. So take it away, Michelle.
Thomas, does your dad know anything about Weston A. Price?
I don't know. I'll have to ask
No.
him though.
Okay, he was a dentist a long time ago that traveled the world looking. He had this idea. He was kind of like the first person that figured out that what you eat obviously impacts your teeth, but then he hypothesized is what you're eating also like even though that you're showing up in your teeth in the form of cavities, is it impacting the rest of your body as well? And it's a fast. He has the Weston A. Price diet. He's got a whole website of all of his findings. He's got a fantastic book, but he was a dentist that went around the world looking at these different diets and how it impacted your oral health, which was kind of the gateway to the rest of your health. Anyways, I
Cool.
digress. All right, let's jump into it. You guys, thank you so much for being here with me today. We're under a little bit of ice as well. It's been a fun couple of days having my little kids out in the snow. My husband had a go-kart and he put a tube that you would tube on the water behind the go-kart and pulled my 4 and 2-year-old around. That was pretty fun. I should have put a video of that in here. We should have all started with a laugh.
Wait, Michelle,
Anyway,
Michelle, before you go
yes.
on, isn't there another Norris since
There
last
is. We're
year?
all, yes, we're almost there, Chris. I got a whole slide. Don't worry.
Oh,
I'm a proud
good.
mom.
Sweet. I want to
Yeah,
make sure.
yeah.
Don't forget, please.
Don't forget Stevie, baby Stevie is here.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're gonna talk all about sugar. We heard that. But here's a little life update from me. Stevie Marie was born on December 18th. She came flying into the world and she is a cool third kid. She got the memo that she's the third baby. She's pretty chill. So there she is. She was 9 pounds 1 ounce. She was my biggest baby. And then Remy turned 2 in November, and Oakley turned 1. I'm sorry, turned 4 a couple weeks ago. He has a proud big brother, as is Remy girl. So there's Miss Stevie with her big siblings. We are settling into life as a family of 5, which seems insane. Yeah, so technically I'm still out on maternity leave, but I love you guys so much. I'm here. I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, so I'm going to pray that I get through this without a coughing fit. But if I do have one, please bear with me. I'm a little bit sleep deprived and uh, just still figuring life out, right? Anyways,
Thank you.
yeah, sure, sure. Okay, so we got a pop quiz for you guys. I want you to think about the answers to these in your head, and then we're going to get into it as they all relate to sugar a little bit. So, what percent of Americans are overweight or obese? Okay, so two categories there, differentiated by a BMI number. So if you add those all together, the overweight category and the obese category, what percent of Americans are overweight or obese? Ready? 73.6%, 31% of those being overweight, 42% being obese. We, for the first time in history, have more obese individuals than we have overweight individuals. And then if you're a healthy weight, you are in the minority. Yikes. There are 600,000 food items in the average American grocery store. What percent have added sugar? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Carson alluded to this. It's literally in what feels like everything, but what percent is it really? 80%. 80%. That's crazy. 80% of the foods that we're consuming have sugar dumped in to make them sweeter. And I'm going to clarify that in a couple of slides, the difference between natural sugar and added sugar, because today we're talking all about that added sugar piece. In the last century, the rate of obesity in children has gone from 1 in 20 to 1 in what? What are we sitting at today? Obesity rates in kids, 1 in 5. 1 in 5, again, because the foods that we feed our kids are loaded with this added sugar. And then we sabotage their palates from a young age, and they grow up to be adults and they have the palate of a 10-year-old. Okay, and they're addicted to sugar. We're going to talk about that piece too. And then how do we undo it? We end up here and we're trying to get off the sugar as adults. It's really difficult. What percent of illness here in the United States that is diagnosed is preventable? I think this is a pretty staggering statistic if you ask me. What percent of illness diagnosed in the US is preventable? When we go to the doctor, what percent of the time do we need to, could we have made different choices to not end up there? That's a weird way to frame it, but it's true. 80%, 80% of illness is preventable. That's not something that you learn in school. It's not something you learn when you go to the doctor's office. It needs to be on every billboard, if you ask me. Lastly, how many teaspoons of sugar does the average American consume daily? We talk about this in the Power of the Fork presentation, which I gave a few years ago. So if you've been with us for a long time, maybe you remember this. I'll give you a hint that the World Health Organization recommends no more than 25 grams, which is the equivalent of 6 teaspoons. So how many teaspoons do we think we are consuming? Are we right on par? Are we getting those 6 teaspoons? That would be a negative. We are way over 22.2 teaspoons, which is the equivalent of 90 grams of sugar on average. Okay. Too much added sugar. All right, let's define added sugar because that's what we're going to be talking about for the rest of this presentation. It is sugar or syrup, so it doesn't have to be table sugar like when we think about, white sugar in the jar. It's sugar or syrup that is added to foods or drinks during the process of preparation or preparation, okay? And there are 50 to 60 different names for sugar. So if you're looking at the ingredient list and you're looking for that word sugar, you might not find it, but that doesn't mean that there's not added sugar in there. It could be high fructose corn syrup. That's sugar. It's in the form of syrup. Could be corn syrup. Could be maltodextrin. Could be dextrose. And there are lots of different names for sugar. They sneak them in. These food companies, they don't want you to know how much sugar that they're actually dumping in to make that product more addictive, to make it light up those pleasure centers in your brain. Okay. The difference in natural sugar versus added sugar, natural sugar is just naturally occurring in whole foods. There's no processing. They're not taking an apple and taking a syringe and injecting it with high fructose corn syrup. There's just natural sugar found in that apple and berries, all kinds of fruits, vegetables, and dairy products have natural sugar in them. The reason they don't taste that sweet to us, though, is because we're comparing it to these other foods that have this added sugar dumped in. So our palate gets all confused. Our palate craves this extra sweet stuff, and we don't appreciate the natural sweetness in these whole foods because our palate's been hijacked. So how do we reclaim control? How do we reclaim the ability to appreciate the sweetness and fruits, vegetables, and dairy products, natural dairy products that don't have sugar dumped in? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Before we get to that, before we get to how do we detox the sugar from our body, I want you to know what is going on when we're over consuming sugar, because I think knowledge is very powerful. And when you know the why do we need to limit our sugar intake? And you can get kind of scared into eating less sugar. I think that's it makes the choices easier than if we don't talk about the why or you don't have the knowledge. As Thomas talked about, he knew it was related to cavities, but if you think, oh, I'll go to the dentist and that'll fix that, okay, maybe you're not that scared of consuming too much sugar. But if you know these other things, then maybe you're more likely to, that can encourage you to make better choices, right? So, what's the dark side of sugar? Let's dive into that. I'm going to give you a few things of what sugar is doing to our body. Weight gain and obesity. This is kind of a no-brainer. I think everyone is aware of when we overconsume sugar, that is basically taking the sugar from our blood and storing it as fat. And a lot of times it's in our midsection. It's that spare tire that we all dread so much. When we overconsume sugar, we are likely to store fat in our midsection. And that's really dangerous because that's where all your organs are. It's called visceral fat, and it's coating your organs, your vital organs, in fat, and then they're not able to function properly. Okay, so if we're someone that really carries our fat in our middle, we need to do our best to start to pull the sugar out of our diet and then hopefully reduce that fat that's around that's coating our organs. Okay. Sugary foods are high in calories. They don't fill us up, so we tend to overeat them. Really dangerous forms of sugar are liquid sugar. So you find that in soda and sweet tea and some of these energy drinks. The brain doesn't register that liquid sugar in the same way as solid food. Okay, so that liquid sugar is extra dangerous. It gives us a huge spike in our blood sugar. It makes the pancreas release that insulin. It's a gateway right to type 2 diabetes. Okay, so if I could really give you one piece of homework, if you're not ready to dive in and go, okay, I'm going to take all the sugar out of my diet, the first place to start is start to remove the liquid sugar from your diet. So whether that's you're adding sugar to your coffee, you're drinking coffee creamer full of sugar, you are drinking soda, I would encourage you, when we stop this presentation and we go into the rest of our lives, I want you to start to pay attention to how much liquid sugar you're consuming. That's a fantastic place to start. Okay. And we talked about the belly fat. So let's keep going. I've got a lot of information for you guys today, so I want to make sure we get through it. So number 2, we have your increased risk of chronic disease. We said in the pop quiz that 80% of disease here in the United States that's diagnosed is preventable. And one of the ways that we can start to prevent those chronic diseases is by pulling the sugar out of our diet. So you can see, I think everybody's pretty aware that sugar, over consuming foods that break down like sugar in the body. So bread, pasta, cookies, crackers, chips, they drive our blood sugar up, which leads to, over time, the increased release of insulin, which leads to type 2 diabetes. Okay, I have a friend who, she's a foot and ankle surgeon, and she unfortunately spends her days amputating the forefoot, the ankle, below the knee of folks with diabetes complications. Okay, so diabetes isn't just about checking your blood sugar, taking your metformin. There are severe negative consequences that come with type 2 diabetes, especially if it's not well controlled. You can lose your eyesight. You have diabetic neuropathy, which means you lose feeling in your hands and your feet. And then you get a little cut in your foot. You don't know it. Then it gets infected. And then that's where the amputations start. It's really scary. So diabetes isn't just, okay, I'm going to prick my finger, take some meds, it's going to be totally fine. There are really scary things that can come along with type 2 diabetes. I have some pictures that she sent me. I don't know who the people are, just of feet that have become so infected that she's had to amputate them. And I was going to put them in this presentation, but I thought maybe that's a little too much. We'll save that for another time. Heart disease. So we think of heart disease, we think, oh, if I eat too much fat, I'm going to get high cholesterol, which is going to lead to heart disease. But what we're learning, the more we learn about heart disease and the more we learn about sugar, we realize that our LDL and our triglycerides are driven up predominantly from consuming too much sugar. So we demonize fat. We said if we eat fat, it's going to drive up your LDL, it's going to drive up your triglycerides. But really, sugar and these processed carbs seem to be more of the culprit. So if you have heart disease in your family, if you have elevated LDL, elevated triglycerides, you absolutely need to listen up today. Third, Alzheimer's, another thing that we are learning more and more about. Alzheimer's in some circles is now being also classified as type 3 diabetes. Too much sugar is contributing to inflammation in the brain, and inflammation in the brain is being recognized as Alzheimer's. When our brain is inflamed, it can't work. We don't remember things. And so if you have Alzheimer's in your family, I absolutely would encourage you to consider something like a paleo diet, a ketogenic diet, maybe even the carnivore diet, pulling all the sugar out of your body the best you can, because you're going to set your brain up for success and a better chance of not having those Alzheimer's genes turned on. You can get your genes tested actually. So if you have Alzheimer's in your family and you're wondering, do I have a gene? Do you have one copy of the gene, which makes you a certain percent um, likely to get Alzheimer's? If you have two copies of the gene, you're even more likely to develop Alzheimer's. So with that information, now that we know that you can make lifestyle choices to lower your risk of those genes being turned on, I would encourage you get the genetic testing done. See how many copies of the gene you have, and then you know how hard you should start to work with your lifestyle choices, including dietary change, to help keep those genes turned off so that you don't end up with Alzheimer's. All right. Very powerful information. A lot of people, my best friend, her mom has early onset Alzheimer's. Her grandmother had Alzheimer's, and I've been trying to talk to her about getting tested, and she really just wants to bury her head in the sand. She doesn't want to know. And I understand that thinking, if we didn't have things that you could do starting now, we're in our 30s, to keep those genes more likely of being not turned on, more expressed, as they say. But we do have things. We have Chris, you have some.
Yeah, Michelle, as well in this, I think Chris Helmsworth has a great show called Limitless. He
He
actually
does.
he actually was
Yeah.
given his parents, each parent gave him an APOE4 gene, which is this one we're
Oh,
talking of. So he has
mhm.
two of them. So he actually
Yeah.
goes through his journey now and how he can. So it's just a great show. I think I don't know which service it's on, but it's a great show. Chris
Yeah.
Helmsworth, he's a big Australian guy. It's an outstanding show, but if you want to take a look at that, that's a great resource for somebody to look at that might have been inherited one of those genes or two.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a great resource. That's fantastic. It's interesting to know that he's also a nice person to look at. All the ladies on the call. So dive into that, that show. You won't be disappointed for a number of reasons. Oh, sorry. All right, dental problems. As Thomas alluded to, and his dad taught him that sugar feeds your mouth bacteria, which leads to acid production, which leads to tooth decay, gum disease, the cavities. Okay, so we need to really take care of our oral health. Your mouth is the gateway to the rest of your body, and we need to think about our oral health and taking care of that, because if we don't have good oral health, that truly is the cascade to a number of other health problems, including heart disease. Actually, if you have gum disease, you're more likely to have heart disease. Did you know that? Fun fact. Energy and mood swings. Maybe you guys have seen this graph before. I think it's super powerful. So what you're looking at is the blood glucose of two individuals. The red line, that's someone that just had a high carb or high sugar, low fat meal, not a lot of protein, not a lot of fat in that meal. So that could be a bowl of cereal and a glass of orange juice. It could be a sandwich and a bag of chips. It could be a big bowl of pasta. It could be a Coke and a pack of nabs. All of those are going to break down like sugar in the body. Okay, so when they break down like sugar, your blood glucose, or the amount of sugar in your blood, goes up. Okay, you have this big spike in your blood glucose. What happens? Your body doesn't like to walk around with a blood sugar of 180. So your pancreas releases insulin. Insulin goes and gets that sugar, pulls it out of the blood, and you have this big crash. Okay, see where it says 240 minutes after starting eating? That feeling right there, that's that 2:30 feeling. You're craving carbohydrates, you're tired, you're cranky, you reach for I don't know, a pack of nabs and another coffee with sugar in it, and you send your blood sugar back up. And many Americans, we do this roller coaster ride all day long. Okay, you have a bagel for breakfast with a sugary coffee, spike, crash. Then you have a pack of nabs and another sugary coffee, spike, crash. For lunch, you have a sandwich and a bag of chips, spike, crash. See? Okay, what the longevity experts are learning is that the more times in our life that we're doing this roller coaster ride, the shorter our lifespan. So the more stable we can keep our blood sugar, the better we feel, the better our brain functions, and the longer we live. How cool is that? So we're aiming for that green line. Also, I want to go back to that red line for a second. So when you have that big crash, your insulin has pulled the sugar out of your blood. And then where does it go? It has two options. One, it can go to your muscles. So if you've worked out, if you've gone for a walk, if you've gone to the gym and you've used up the energy or the glycogen in your muscles, okay, it likes to shuttle it there. That's preferred. But for many of us Americans, we're not using our bodies enough. We're not using up that glycogen enough. So our muscles are full. And so then it doesn't have any place to go. Think about it like a storage unit. It's completely full, can't go in there. So it has to go somewhere else. And you know where that other place is? That's the spare tire. Okay, so we go get the sugar, pull it out of the blood, try and send it to the muscles. No, we haven't moved our bodies. So then it gets stored as fat. And if we're doing that 3, 4, 5, 6 times a day, you can see how the fat starts to add up. That's why that green line is imperative. That's less sugar. That's more of those complex carbohydrates, reaching for sweet potatoes, beans, lentils, oats, quinoa, okay, those whole grains, not bread, pasta, not the sugary stuff, not the cereal. Okay, keeping that blood sugar more stable is really important for our blood sugar, for our energy, so that we're not having those slumps, not having the mood swings. When we talk about the mood swing, we are cranky, we crave the carbohydrates, we're really tired. We don't make good choices when we're feeling that way, right? Or maybe irritable with our kids, with our spouse, with our coworkers. So that green line, that's just better overall, right? Fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. So you might have heard of fatty liver disease as it relates to alcoholics. If you drink too much, okay, you consume too much alcohol, you can get alcohol-induced fatty liver disease. Okay, it's where there's literally too much fat buildup around the liver. But now what we're seeing is we're seeing more of non-alcohol induced fatty liver. Okay, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It even has its own name, and it's where we just consume too much sugar, specifically fructose. So high fructose corn syrup, you've heard of that. When we overconsume that liquid sugar, that can tend to build up the fat around the liver, and then the liver can't function properly. That's the detox organ of our body. Right? So when that can't work, then we go into liver failure, and that's a whole other problem. So we want to absolutely take good care of our liver so that it can do all the detoxing it needs to do so that we don't end up in liver failure. All right, even if it's just for vanity purposes, we want to limit our sugar intake, right? And excess sugar intake drives up inflammation in the body. Okay, when we drive up inflammation in the body, our joints don't feel good. But on top of that, we can get acne, we can get eczema, psoriasis. It damages the collagen and the elastin in our skin, which those are two things that keep our skin looking youthful. So we can have premature wrinkles, premature sagging from overconsumption of sugar because of the inflammation that it causes. Okay, so if you struggle with any of those, if you struggle with any sort of skin issues, if you're trying to look young and bright and youthful, which is one more reason to work to pull the sugar out of our diet. All right. Okay, I get it. I've tried to kick the sugar, but I just can't. What's up with that? Why can't I get the sugar out of my diet? What's the problem? Am I the problem? Here's the deal. Sugar's a drug. If you watch the documentary, what is it called? Fed Up, they will, Mark Hyman is one of the docs in there, and he talks about how sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. How crazy is that? Cocaine is a very addictive drug, but it lights up the same pathway. It's the same reward system in the brain and releases that dopamine, the same chemical that's involved in pleasure, motivation, and cravings. Okay, so repeat sugar consumption, which we're all doing on a daily basis, it just reinforces this habit. And then you go and try and get off of it, and it's literally trying to come off of a drug. You have withdrawal symptoms, you're irritable, you have headaches, you have fatigue. Sometimes you can even get flu-like symptoms trying to pull the sugar out of your diet. And then because you feel so crappy, you're like, okay, I'll just have one little thing, one bag of M&Ms, one bowl of ice cream, something like that, and then we're right back on the horse. And it's so difficult to completely pull the sugar out of our diet. Okay, so I want to give you two paths to trying to pull back the sugar and get unaddicted to this incredibly addictive drug. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today. And then we're going to encourage you guys to join Chris, who's pledged over the next 28 days to remove all sugar from his diet. We can all do it together, and we can all commiserate in our misery, right? And then feel really, really good there at the end. Okay.
I'm in.
He's in.
I'm in.
All right, so do we need rehab? Do we all need to go to rehab together? That's the question I get sometimes. If sugar is a drug, do I need to go to rehab? And the answer is no. You need a reset. Remember how I talked about there's natural sugar in fruits and vegetables? We just don't appreciate them. We don't even think about those foods as sweet because we have foods that are so much sweeter. So we need to reset our baseline. We need to learn to appreciate the sugar that's found in those fruits and vegetables, and then that can satisfy our sugar craving, right? So the one way that we can do this is we can rip the Band-Aid off. And this is what we're going to encourage you guys to join us and do. This is essentially something like the Whole30. This is what the Whole30 does. It pulls out all added sugar for 30 days. I'm all in. It feels a little bit abrupt at first. You go through all those withdrawal symptoms, but the other side is incredible. You feel focused. You feel energized. You don't have those crashes. You're sleeping better. Okay, things that do this, the paleo diet pulls out all added sugar. If you follow that strictly, if you do the Whole30 strictly, you've done this, you pulled all added sugar out. I would encourage you, maybe that's your meal plan for the next 30 days, 28 days. The ketogenic diet, there's no room for added sugar there because you're trying to tap into this process of ketosis, which means your body's using fat as energy versus carbohydrates. The carnivore diet, same thing. You're only eating meat. Maybe you're doing like a carnivore-ish diet where you're eating meat, fruit, and dairy products. But same thing, all of those eliminate sugar from the diet. Okay. The focus is on whole, real foods, varying levels of carbohydrates, but they do not recommend eating any added sugar. Okay. And again, this can be really tough for some people. This might not be the way forward for you. If this feels too difficult, if you feel like I've tried to do this before, I've lasted 2 days and I just it was too overwhelming. I couldn't do it. I'm too busy with the rest of my life. I have little kids. I just can't do it. That's fine. I have another method for you. What you can expect if you do dive into this 28-day, 30-day protocol of just completely going cold turkey on the sugar, days 1 through 5 are tough. They're really tough. You've got sugar cravings, you've got headaches, you've got fatigue, all those withdrawal symptoms, right? That we talked about. It's like a drug. You're getting off the drug. You feel extra hungry. Okay, that can be a really long 5 days. And Chris showed me a funny graph before we started this, and I'm sure he'll share it again with you guys after this, but it's very accurate of a bit kind of how you feel through this process. Day 6 through 14, this is really the turning point. The cravings start to fade. You become more energized. You have better sleep. And then your taste buds start to reset. That's the most powerful because then we become not a slave to our food. We feel more in control of our food choices. We don't get done with a meal and then go running to the pantry to get that little sweet treat that we crave every time we finish a meal. We feel more in control. We feel like we don't have to do that. Okay. And I don't know about you guys, but I call it like food freedom. I didn't really experience this until I was in college. I had that back injury. I was trying to heal my back. And so I was pulling the inflammatory foods out. Sugar is a very inflammatory food. So that was one of the things that had to go. And I stopped focusing on, I was a diver forever. And so you're in a bathing suit that's pretty revealing. And so your weight is something that's always on your mind. You're constantly thinking about your body composition. And it's kind of a vain thing. Also, I spun it in the sense that it was for my sport, but really it's pretty vain. And once I stopped thinking about that and I started thinking about, okay, I'm doing this for my health. I have this awful back injury. I'm trying to heal it. I've got to get the inflammation out of my body. And I was just focusing on that. And then all of a sudden I became free from the pull of the carbohydrates, the pull of the sugar, and I didn't even realize it. And I stepped into this place of food freedom. I could walk into the break room. I was working in a physical therapy practice at the time. I could walk into the break room and see the donuts and not have any desire to grab one. Who wants that? Everybody wants that. You want the freedom to decide whether or not you're going to take a bite of something versus feeling like it controls you. I can't not have one. Okay. And that is a wonderful place to be. So you start to experience that in this turning point, and then days 15 through 30, it's the payoff phase. Fewer cravings, improved mood. You can focus. Your brain just feels like you're super sharp. You can find your words really easily. Reduce bloating, so you feel thinner in your waistline, more consistent energy because you're in that green line much more often. And then a lot of times you start to see the fat loss. And you start to see the scale come down. You start to feel like your rings fit a little better. Your belt maybe goes one more notch. Okay. That's if you go all in. You kind of cold turkey the sugar. It's tough. It takes some planning. You have to go through a tough 5 days, but in the end, it is absolutely worth it. A few important reminders if you're going to dive in with us this way. It's not punishment, it's information. You're learning about your body. You're learning to retrain those taste buds. You're learning that there is natural sweetness found in whole, real food. We absolutely, when we're doing this, if you want to have a chance at feeling better, to reduce those cravings, we need to make sure we're eating enough protein and enough healthy fat. Remember that for most of us, we need between 0.5 and 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. Okay, so if you're a 200-pound person, multiply that by 0.5, 100. So 100 grams of protein is the minimum amount of protein you need to be consuming on a daily basis. Multiply 200 by 0.8, It's 160. 160 is more of like the upper side. Okay, there are some exceptions to all of that, but for the majority of us, that's the range that we need to be consuming protein in, and then enough healthy fat. That's going to help you feel full. It's going to help reduce those cravings, and make sure that your brain is getting that signal that says, I'm good. I don't need more. Okay. That's a natural signal that's supposed to go from our stomach to our brain that says, I'm full. You can push the plate away. Okay. Protein and fat, make sure that signal gets there. We need to hydrate. We need to make sure that we're having enough electrolytes. Okay. So we can add salt, we can add Ultima, we can add Element, we can add I don't like Liquid IV because there's a bunch of added sugar in there. I do believe they just came out with one that has stevia in it. So let me talk about that for a second. So when we're doing this 30 days cold turkey of no sugar, what about stevia? What about monk fruit? These sugar alternatives that don't create that spike in our blood sugar. And here's what I want to say. It's kind of like, I know we're talking about rip the Band-Aid, but that's kind of a Band-Aid because they are hyper sweet. They're not allowing you to fully appreciate the sweetness found in fruits and vegetables. It's kind of like it's really not helping you long term because it's just a substitute for sugar. So if you really, really, really want to retrain your taste buds and take control of your food choices and not be controlled by the donuts in the break room, I would encourage you not to do stevia and not to do monk fruit during this 30 days.
And honey as
Okay.
well. Would you also agree with honey?
Honey as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. Truly. I mean, and not saying that those are bad. Hear me when I say that. They aren't harmful to your health. Honey, there's an upper limit, of course, that we should consume. But for the purposes of this reset, we're not allowing our body to fully reset by using those as a crutch. Okay. And then progress over perfection. If you fall off the wagon one day and you're really struggling and you reach for a Hershey kiss, don't let that be a slippery slope and you just give up. Okay. Just get back on. Just go right back to it. You're going to be okay. All right. What does a sample day of eating look like? If you're going to do something like that for breakfast, you can have eggs, avocado, some sauteed veggies. This is what I had for breakfast this morning, scrambled eggs with sweet potato. I had some chicken sausage in there. I had avocado and yeah, that was it. Lunch, grilled chicken salad with olive oil, snack, apple and almond butter. Got mine right here. Dinner, salmon, roasted sweet potatoes, broccoli, and then we can have some berries as a treat. I know that sounds so silly right now. Berries probably don't feel like a treat, but over time, you're going to, again, start to appreciate how sweet they are once you're not exposed to the extremely sweet stuff. Okay. All right. What's the other method? Maybe that one feels overwhelming. Again, maybe you've tried it, it hasn't worked for you. How can we do this in a more sustainable way that maybe isn't just all in and all consuming? This is more for busy parents, maybe people who hate extremes, and then the folks who have tried before and they got burnt out. Okay. So slow and steady. Slow and steady. That's another fantastic way to do it. And we just take it week by week. Okay. And we introduce different new habits each week. Here we go. What's step one? Again, I gave you your homework earlier in this presentation. So whether you're going to rip the Band-Aid with us or you want to go slow and steady, the first place we want to start is with our drinks. That liquid sugar, it's slowly killing us. All right. It's our road to diabetes. It's our road to Alzheimer's. It's our road to heart disease. Start to replace your sweet tea, your sugary energy drinks, your soda with sparkling water. Maybe you're going to do something like Zevia or Poppy. There are pictures that are supposed to be on this slide. I don't know where they went. Poppy or Olipop. Those are those soda alternatives. They're sweetened with stevia though. Okay. So everything I just said about ripping the Band-Aid and we're not doing stevia or monk fruit or honey. If we're going to go slow and steady, absolutely Zevia, Poppy, Olipop are certainly better than soda or diet soda. Okay. They're going to not necessarily help us retrain our taste buds in the way that we're trying to, though. So know that. If you're a sweet coffee person, if you dump in your International Delight, try and make the swap to Nut Pods or Super Creamer. It's another brand of coffee creamer. And then if you're a juice drinker, maybe we're eating real fruit instead of drinking juice. When you're drinking juice, orange juice, apple juice, grape juice, uh, that's essentially just liquid sugar. Okay. It's the same thing as drinking a Coke. It spikes that blood sugar just the same. Okay. That's step one. Maybe we do that for a week. We're going to replace those sugary beverages. Step two, we're going to start to think about increasing our protein or just ensuring that we're getting enough we're focusing on healthy fats, and we're getting enough fiber. I can give a whole presentation on fiber. Most of us undereat fiber. What is fiber? It's found in all plants. Okay. And it helps us digest our food. It helps us feel full. It feeds the good bacteria in our gut. Okay. Our microbiome is really important. We need a diverse microbiome. So when we have enough protein, we have enough healthy fat, we have enough fiber, we have a stable blood sugar, and then that leads to fewer cravings. Remember that graph I showed you when we have that crash? That's when the cravings come in. So if we have enough fat and healthy protein and fiber, we're avoiding that dip. Okay, so then we again can feel more in control of our food choices versus them controlling us. Maybe week 3, we go into upgrading our snacks. Instead of reaching for pretzels and Triscuits as a snack, we're doing more protein, more healthy fat. We're reaching for an IQ bar, a chopped beef jerky stick. We're swapping our Ritz crackers or our Triscuits for Simple Mills crackers, natural peanut butter. So swapping our Jifs for something like Crazy Richards or the Costco peanut butter that's just peanuts and salt. We're getting raw nuts as a snack, so that's protein and healthy fat. Keeping our blood sugar more stable is the goal through every step here. Okay. The last step being we're going to start to read the nutrition facts label. You guys, this is supposed to see those pretty pictures that are supposed to be on here. Let's jump back into it. Here we go. See, these were my pictures that were there. Here's the Poppy brand of soda, if you guys haven't seen that before.
Oh yeah.
And then these are the IQ bars. If you're unfamiliar with those, that's one of the protein bars. Protein bars can be like a Snickers, or they can be a fantastic source of snack to bridge the gap between lunch and dinner, or breakfast and lunch. So you have to be really careful. You can't just say that all protein bars are great. A lot of them are actually packed full of sugar. The IQ bar is sweetened with stevia, and there's no added sugar in it. That's why I like to recommend that one. All right, and then step 4, as we dive deeper into our slow and steady way of pulling the sugar out, we're going to start to pay attention to the nutrition facts label. Back in 2020, we got a new nutrition facts label. See right here, it says includes 10 grams of added sugar. Food companies now have to tell you how much sugar they're dumping in per serving to make that product sweeter. Okay, so if you look right here, this is Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce. Look at that. Per serving, which is 2 tablespoons, there are 16 grams of added sugar. 16 grams per serving. Okay. When you're trying to stay underneath 25 grams of added sugar, which is the World Health Organization recommendation, that's over half your sugar for the whole day in one condiment. And look at the ingredients. High fructose corn syrup, that's the first ingredient. Remember, that's the liquid sugar. That's the worst kind we can consume. So we need to know that. We need to start reading the nutrition facts label and the ingredient list of the foods that we're consuming so that we're more aware and we can make these more informed choices of, do I want to spend my 25 grams of added sugar on Sweet Baby Ray's? Do I want to spend it on this high fructose corn syrup? Okay, because it is sneaky. Look at this Yoplait yogurt, 13 grams of sugar in this tiny container of yogurt. Again, that's half your sugar for the whole day in one container of yogurt. So we just want to start to be aware of that. And when we start to read the labels, that information again is powerful and it helps us make better choices. If you're overwhelmed by the idea of trying to pull all the sugar out of your diet from the get-go, maybe we do this. Maybe we go slow and steady. We take 4 weeks and we're all going to do this 28-day challenge where we try and take all the sugar out for 28 days. But for you guys that maybe feel like, okay, I'm going to do 2 days and fail. I know myself. Let's do this. Each week, 4 weeks, that's 28 days. Each week we're adding a step. Okay. And you guys are going to get a copy of this presentation. You're going to get a copy of these slides. I'm happy to make a little handout for you if you're going to go the slow and steady route, and I can give you the week by week protocol of what to do, but your body will absolutely thank you. What does a sample day of eating, if we're going to go slow and steady, look like? Maybe we're having Greek yogurt. That's the plain Jane full fat Greek yogurt. So no added sugar. We're going to add berries to that for some sweetness and some seeds for some additional healthy fat and fiber. Lunch, maybe we have a turkey wrap with veggies. I would encourage you to make that wrap the Siete almond flour wrap, okay, versus a whiter wheat wrap so that we keep that blood sugar more stable. For snack, we're having that protein bar like an IQ bar, like an Aloha bar or some cottage cheese. Dinners, we're having tacos on corn tortillas and avocado, okay? Avocado is full of fiber. We talked about the importance of fiber. Avocado is a fantastic source of fiber. And then dessert, maybe we're having a tiny piece of dark chocolate. Maybe it's that 70% cacao dark chocolate covered almond, or maybe some fruit for dessert. Okay, so a little bit different there, a little bit more leniency, but still you can see the day is nearly 100% whole, real foods. Okay, that's the trick here. We're reaching for the majority of our diet coming from these whole, real foods: fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, eggs, meat, beans, oats, lentils. That's pretty much it. Okay. How do you know which method is right for you? So if you want to join us for 28 days sugar-free, that's if you love structure, you want fast results. Maybe you got a trip to Costa Rica coming up next month and you need to get in that bathing suit. You are an all or nothing kind of person, or you need a clear start and a clear finish. Okay, if that is you, that's me. So if that is you too, join us for this 28-day challenge where we're going to pull all the sugar out of our diet, 28 days, reset our taste buds. If that feels completely overwhelming, you prefer some flexibility, you have a lot of social events, maybe you have a trip coming up in 2 weeks and you want to be able to enjoy yourself and have a little bit of sugar, maybe this rip the band-aid is not right for you and you want to go slow and steady, that's totally fine too. Okay. Either way works. Again, the rip the band-aid, a little bit faster results, but slow and steady over time. If that's going to keep you on track for a longer period of time, then you're going to get the results you want and you're going to keep them off. And that's fantastic. If you're the person that's like, okay, I can do 30 days. And then after 30 days, you're right back to where you were, then maybe you do consider the slow and steady approach. Okay. Might be more sustainable for you. I got bad news. You're going to have cravings, especially in the first week. You're going to want sugar. Okay. So here are your tips for when the sugar cravings come. Number one, make sure we're eating enough protein. All right. That could be eggs, could be hard-boiled eggs, could be those Chomps beef jerky sticks, could be a protein bar, could be any kind of meat. Make sure we're getting good quality meat. We're getting pasture-raised chicken. We're getting wild-caught fish. We're getting grass-fed beef, pasture-raised turkey, that kind of thing. Right? If we're getting enough protein, the cravings tend to be less. If you are feeling an intense sugar craving, drink a huge thing of water with some electrolytes in it. I love the Ultima. You can do Element. You can do what's another one? There's a couple other good ones. There's a few brands that are coming. Thorne has a good electrolyte supplement as well. So all those could be an option for you. Move your body. Move for 5 minutes. Kind of retrain your focus. A lot of times the sugar cravings come, they're intense, they're all you can think about. But if you get some sort of 5 minutes of movement in, maybe it's 5 minutes of walk, maybe you do a 5-minute body weight workout, maybe you walk up and down the stairs in your home for 5 minutes. A lot of times that'll take our mind away from it. Check in with your sleep. If you are not sleeping enough, our sugar cravings, our carb cravings tend to be way worse. Okay, it's typically because our body feels more stressed. So we have more cortisol. And when our cortisol is elevated, we crave carbohydrates, we crave sugar. So we need to make sure we're getting between 7 and 9 hours of sleep every night. My ladies on the call, you actually need closer to that 9 hours. My gentlemen on the call, you can get closer to that 7, but anything less than that, and we really start to have some serious health impacts. Okay, my gentlemen, less than 7 hours consistently a night is congruent with lower levels of testosterone, which means your energy is lower, more difficult holding on to muscle mass, much less building muscle mass. Okay, so sleep is really important. We could do a whole presentation on sleep. Honestly, maybe we should, because sleep is, imperative. If you guys have never listened to Dr. Matthew Walker, I think Chris, you have. He's the neuroscientist that focuses on sleep. He will scare you into sleeping 9 hours a night with all of his research. And then lastly, maybe just wait 10 minutes. See if you can get through 10 minutes without doing anything, without reaching for sugar, without reaching for a snack. Just say, okay, I'm going to get through the next 10 minutes. And a lot of times our brain will refocus and we're on to the next thing. All right. So these are your tips. These are some tools in your tool belt next time you get a craving. All right. If you're going to dive in for this 28-day challenge, make sure you take a picture of this slide so you have this for that first week so we can get through it together. Simple swaps, another thing to take a picture of here. All right, so if you're going to go all in for 28 days, no sugar, there are some things on this slide that we can't have because of the stevia or the just the sugar alternative that they're using. The Crazy Richards, that's simply just peanuts. There's no salt, no nothing in it. It's just peanuts. That would get the approval. Three Wishes cereal, it is sweetened, I believe, with stevia. So that would not be approved for these first 30 days. But long term, it's a much better alternative than traditional cereal. Okay, Halo Top, that is sweetened with stevia. So that would not be in the first 30 days. But again, long term, a fantastic option for you if you're an ice cream person. My traditional bread lovers, we're switching to something like Ezekiel bread. This would be an okay option no matter which route you want to go. All right. It's found in the freezer section of most grocery stores these days, and because it doesn't have any preservatives in it. So when you bring it home, throw it in the fridge so it doesn't grow mold. Enjoy Life cookies, they do have some sugar in them. They just have way less sugar and a much simpler ingredient list. Okay, so that's a great cookie alternative for down the road. Once we get a handle on our taste buds, we retrain them. We can eat one Enjoy Life cookie and really appreciate it versus maybe right now, because we're all sugar addicts, we would have to eat a whole sleeve to feel fulfilled, right? Unreal, it's a brand of candy. They do still have sugar in them. You can see it's an M&M alternative. They call them like chocolate gems or something, but there's no dye and it's less sugar. So there's still sugar in there, but the idea is that we're not consuming as much and we're not getting the dye that we would in traditional M&Ms. Okay. So again, that's for down the road once we've retrained our taste buds and gotten a handle on our sugar cravings. Swapping your Dana Light and Fit or your Yoplait yogurt, like I showed previously, for something like Chobani, zero sugar added, or just a whole full fat plain Jane yogurt, and maybe put some berries in there to get some additional sweetness that we can appreciate down the road. Swapping your orange juice or any juice for, I talked about whole fruit, or we can go with the Zevia blood orange tea. Zevia is a fantastic line of soda, energy drinks, and teas, all sweetened with stevia. Okay. So stevia, monk fruit, we touched on those. They keep your blood sugar nice and stable, but they do still light up those same pleasure centers in the brain. They still give that dopamine response. So if we are really trying to get a handle on our sugar cravings and decrease that dopamine response from sugar, we don't want to be eating a lot of products with stevia or monk fruit over this process, right through this process. Okay.
Michelle, quick question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you ever heard of those skinny dipped cups?
I have, yes.
Those are a common, they're kind of a staple in our household. What are your thoughts
Okay.
on those?
Yeah, they're a much better alternative to, traditional ice cream. You're talking about the ice cream ones.
They're like Reese's peanut butter cups, but
Oh, oh,
they're
oh,
at,
yes, they're purple, the purple
yep,
ones.
yep.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, they're a much better alternative. Are they sweetened with stevia?
Great question that I don't know off the top of my head. I know they have 2 grams of sugar.
Yeah, I think they have some stevia in there too. Only 2 grams of sugar. They still taste really sweet though, right?
Yeah.
And so those and the Unreal candy, they're still going to light up those pleasure centers in our brain, creating that dopamine response. So they're really, it's like it's just an alternative versus really trying to unaddict yourself from the culprit, which is the sugar. So they're not bad necessarily for your health, but if we're trying to create this idea where we're more in control of our food choices, we don't feel super tempted every time we're around sugar. When we go to the movies, we need the Sour Patch Kids. When we, do you guys have those places where you go and you just like can't help yourself? If we want to be more in control and not be controlled by food, I would encourage you for during a short period, eliminating all of it so that once we reintroduce, we do feel more in control. Okay. So we are at the end of the presentation. We're going to do more questions. I would love to hear from you guys. I think we have some things in the chat, but we'd
We
love
do.
for you to join us. Chris, do you want to touch on what you want to do over the next, I keep saying 30 days, 28 days. I'm
Sure.
not sure how long you want to go.
20
Yeah.
to 30 days, I think it's great. I think for us, we can even do touch points. If we want to do something once a week, just touching points, because the first week is the
Yeah.
toughest. You did ask me to share a technical graph, so I will share it
Yes.
here.
Yeah, share it. I'll stop
I've written
sharing.
it in here. You're just going to see it here. And what you're going to find is it starts on this side over here where the excitement starts. Then you approach something here the military calls the suck, and you'll see that a bad face. And then you'll find as you come up this way, you're going to see the happiness and yay as you get to the 2 weeks and 30 days.
Mhm.
It's really technical. I can send you more information on it, but I have to probably do some disclosures because I'm sure Raymond James wouldn't care for that technical aspect of the graph I just showed. But it applies to a lot more, by the way, than just this program. But I wanted to say it's
Mhm.
very applicable to what we're about to do because I've done it before. Um, What I do notice is you mentioned too the clarity of thought, but I did have a question. You've been talking a lot about this. We're talking about this method. We're talking about cold turkey, right? What's the best
Mhm.
brand of cold turkey to get for this?
Applegate,
Ah,
actually.
there you go. Applegate. Good. I knew you'd have an answer to it. I thought it's funny, but as you look at it, it's true. You want to have those snacks aside and ready because when that craving comes, what I've noticed is if it's
Mhm.
there, you'll eat it. If it's not, you'll find something else.
Yeah.
I think it's a great one. But I think if we did something maybe just once a week, a touch base where we send an email, we send something, some
Hmm.
encouragement, even a little video of, hey, we know it's this tough part of this week.
Yeah.
How's it going so far? It's I think a great forum for people to at least see or get that encouragement, even if they're just consuming it. So I'd commit to that maybe on an every Monday basis, just sending something out.
Yeah.
Tough week, got this one coming up. This is the toughest week. You got it past you. Third week, you're starting to see the smile. We'll go back to the graph. Maybe I can send the graph along with it and put, the
I would love
bi-week
it.
basis. I mean, it's pretty
Like
technical.
where we are in the graph.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that.
where we are on the graph for our own challenge. But I think it'd be a good thing if somebody would like to go with the Band-Aid ripped off. For me, that's a method that works best because of the controlling part. It's always hard to measure, and what I've noticed is the results that I see very quickly post the 3 to 4 or 5 days, or actually first week, if you will, are tremendous when it comes to
Hmm.
clarity. The lack of, I think even the donut test, walking by donuts because everybody sends them.
Yeah.
But one big thing too, don't hesitate to throw the things in your cupboard out. Even if they're good, donate them if they're not open. Get them out of your environment because your environment makes a
Hmm.
difference. If you have to walk by and
Yeah.
you know that cookies are there for somebody and it's
Yeah.
sitting there, that actually does take energy to walk by them knowing they're there. Anyway, that's one big part for myself as well. Just a couple of suggestions. Michelle, any comments on those?
No, I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
Good, good,
Great.
good.
Yeah.
So we've got about 9 different questions. I'll go with a couple. The one question somebody had on here was, and I think you answered one, which is, can we use stevia or Truvia in coffee instead of sugar? I think your answer was yes, but if you're going the cold turkey route, no. If you're doing the gradual
Hmm.
route, probably.
Right. Right.
Okay. But the
Yeah.
one was, what is the impact, long-term impact of GLPs? Do GLPs have any impact in this as well? I know it's to be determined because they've only been on for a short time. There is no long impact measured on GLPs yet. I get that, but that was a question.
That's true. So they've been studying them for about 8 years now. So we have
Mhm.
about eight. We know what the long term. Let's define long term as 8 years. Okay. I think they can be a wonderful tool for people struggling to lose weight. Maybe you're pre-diabetic. Maybe you have diabetes. I do think there's a place for them. I think
Mhm.
where we get in trouble is that they are given out without any instruction or guidance on how to change your diet and then exercise alongside of them. So that's a huge piece. My sister and I have been health coaching, the two of us for the last 10 years, and I have yet to know someone who's come off a GLP period.
Ah,
So I get asked all the time, do you know anyone that's come off and then kept the weight off? And I don't even know anyone that's come off at all. I do know people that have stopped because they've had negative side effects.
mhm.
They did it for a month, they felt really bad. And so they were like, this isn't for me. But for someone that's maybe been on it for 6 months or a year, they've seen the results that they wanted to see and then weaned off. I've never seen that. So that concerns me. The other piece that we're seeing is that we have an in-body scanner. We've talked about this in the past. It measures muscle mass, it measures fat mass. And for the folks that are not eating enough protein or strength training while they're on the GLP, we see their muscle mass just disappear. And that's really, really scary. We did a couple presentations ago, or maybe it was the last one, my mom brain doesn't work, about the importance of muscle mass and
Yeah.
how that's your vitality, it's your longevity. And so without muscle mass, you are at much higher risk for an early death. And so if we're taking this drug to ultimately try and lose some fat to be healthier, but yet we are eating away at our muscle mass, we're kind of like I mean, we're not helping ourselves long term. Okay, so if you're going to be on a GLP, I absolutely need you to focus on your protein intake and you have to strength train. You have to preserve that muscle mass with the ultimate goal of you've changed your nutrition enough. And so therefore you can come off the GLP because we don't know what the long term effects are. I see some scary statistics sometimes come across the things that I'm reading about your thyroid and thyroid cancer and I don't know, blindness. I don't know how much of that is true. I need to look more into it. I don't know. Maybe that's a super, super rare side effects, but pretty much there's no such thing as a free lunch. And we all need to remember that.
Yeah, that's a good approach. There's several more here. I think one thing you mentioned, and this just reminded me when you were talking about this, we've done, probably 12 or 15 of these. It'd be kind of a great point at some point if we had a recap of just the high points of these that we could send maybe once a year. We just send them to people and say, hey, listen, here's something we
Sure.
talked about in the past because you have covered a lot of these things. Sarcopenia is a big issue for those aging, right? And as we age, we
Yeah.
need to have enough, protein, which I've really focused on since last time you mentioned it. So it's been a big effect to make sure we get
Good.
enough protein per day on everything that we eat.
Hmm.
But those are huge.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Somebody asked, what makes it addictive? Is it like salty chips or is it the dopamine?
Uh,
What makes sugar addictive?
what, just like salty chips. So salty chips, I guess it depends on the brand of chips, why
Mhm.
they're addictive.
Yeah.
Like if you're eating something like Doritos, they have scientists on staff that make sure that
Mm.
the signal that's supposed to go from your stomach to your brain to say I'm full, it doesn't get there. They are literally scientifically designed to block that signal. That's why we can eat and eat and eat and eat and not feel satisfied. What makes it addictive? The sugar component is that it lights up those receptors in our brain, that dopamine response. And processed foods in general kind of do this, but it's like when I've never done cocaine, but from what the research says, when you do cocaine, it lights up those dopamine receptors in our brain, which is that intense feeling of happiness, euphoria. I love this. I want more of this. The brain craves it. And so sugar does that. It lights up those same pleasure centers in the brain.
That's a good point. Thank you. And actually, somebody asked this question. What can someone in their 70s do, if anything? And quite honestly, I don't think age has a lot to do with what we're talking
No,
about today, quite
no.
honestly, but I get it.
Anybody,
But they're wondering, hey, is this going to be effective for me?
for sure. Yeah, anybody, any age.
Awesome. That was a quick
Yeah.
question. This one was good. Sorry if you've already answered some of your questions in the presentation. No need to repeat. I just want to put that in because I thought it was funny. I'm joking. But the other one, we had somebody ask a question. During the reset time, are you just removing added sugar or pasta and bread also?
Depends on the results you want. If they don't have any added sugar, then technically no, you don't have to remove them. If you're trying to really emphasize health, if you want that brain fog to go away, you want that mental clarity, you want to lose some weight, I would do bread and pasta too. But that's up to you.
Yeah, good question. So here's a question. Why raw nuts and not dry roasted?
If they're dry roasted and the only ingredient is the nut and salt, totally fine. The problem is that most dry roasted nuts that are salted, they use some sort of seed oil to get the salt to stick. So it's canola oil, it's peanut oil, it's sunflower oil, safflower oil, corn oil, and those are super inflammatory to the body. So that's why I prefer raw nuts. If you can find a dry roasted nut where the ingredient list is just the nut and salt, go for it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I appreciate that as well. It was pretty funny. Somebody put down here. I think Jane mentioned something about exactly. Don't buy poor choice. I'm an Oreo girl, not reading the package and just throwing it out. She laughed. She thought it was quite a fun way to make some comments. I go, yeah, good point. So somebody actually mentioned too. I make homemade bread using bread flour. It doesn't call for much sugar, but what's a good alternative to sugar when doing that? Is it switching to whole grain flour or something, or sourdough bread? Is there any?
Sourdough.
Okay, sourdough,
Yeah.
no doubt. Yeah, I've read that
Mhm.
as well. So
Yeah,
sourdough, no
sourdough
doubt.
is much
And,
better.
and
Yeah.
if you do have to have a sweetener in it, maybe monk fruit or stevia as a sweetener in whatever they could add, right?
Yeah, monk fruit typically is better for baking.
Okay, perfect. That's good to know. That's what they
Yeah.
asked. Somebody has intermittent fasting along with no sugar. Is that an issue or is it a good
Oh,
correlation to go along?
great.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic.
Intermittent
For sure.
fasting as well. Good. The last one I had here was I don't eat added sugar. Sugar triggers my Raynaud syndrome. The first 2 weeks are very tough to give up sugar, but then it's easy. So this is just a statement from one of the clients as well. So they're kind of going along with this. So I think it's really,
Love it.
I think it's awesome. And I think what I want to say here, Michelle, I know you're on maternity leave, and thanks for coming on and doing this. It's a great thing
Sure.
early in the year for us to have something to reset this. And it's not like everybody's, January 1st. I think by the 5th or so, 72% have already given up their New Year's resolution. So this is great to do it post that. I really mean it. And it's this nice period of time through February. So thank you so much for bringing some of them
Sure.
in as well, because these are fantastic. I think that I had a thank you, great information. I think so. We've got a bunch of people saying that, but more importantly, thank you for your expertise. Thank you for keeping us healthy. Thank you for
Mhm.
really. There's a chance she's going to speak at a big event for us coming up this year for the whole entire company. But we really love Michelle. She's great. If you ever want to reach out and do something with her, she's fantastic, and she'll set up an individual program with you. And she's got some
Mhm.
wonderful rates that apply. But she's an expert. She's in your corner. We wanted to bring her to you over time because these are experts that you need on a day-to-day basis. Sure, you can look up everything on a chat.gpt or something, but it doesn't tell you really what to do. She's excellent at it. She can kind of look at the fluff versus not. She's fantastic. So we appreciate you coming off of your maternity leave to do this for us, and hopefully you get to go back on and enjoy
Yeah.
your time with the family and play in the snow or the whatever you've got there.
Yeah, some ice. Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, no, Thomas, anything as well for closing? Thomas or Carson?
No, just to echo what you said, Chris, Michelle, thank you so much. Yeah, I know you talked a lot about spikes in blood sugar, and for me,
Mm.
this always kind of spikes my motivation to like get back on track, especially this time of
Yeah.
year after the holidays.
Yes.
It's just really easy to get into like the routine and monotony and not thinking about what you're putting in your body. So this always kind of refocuses and
Good.
recenters me. So just appreciate everything you do for us.
I love that. And Thomas, I appreciate that too, because actually it made me think about that. Motivation is something needed every day, like a vitamin. When she turns this into inspiration for me, like she did with protein, it makes a huge difference in how I take action every day. And then it's not like, oh, I need to motivate myself too. Now I'm inspired to be better rather than just
Hmm.
do something better. So that's a great point. Really awesome. Thank you. Well, Michelle, once again, from our team, from our clients, thank you very much. Love to you. Love to your family. Thank you for providing us with this incredible resource as well. We look forward to you, your expanding family. We'll expand the family of your business as well over time. But
Thank you.
the impact you have of those who've listened today is definitely. My mom and I talk about it all the time. She loves it. She's reached out to you. You know that she's done a great job with this. So thank you once again from all of us here, our family, all of the teams, from Freeze Financial Group, from Adams Wealth Partners. We really appreciate you and what you do for us. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day. And everybody who's starting the challenge, the clock starts now. No more sugar. No more sugar. No added sugar, no bread, no pasta. Thank you so much. And then we'll give you an update on Monday. Thank you.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.